Hey there and welcome back. Did you find any doorway ideas? I hope you did. I actually found another one when I looked around my house. I found this watering can and I was thinking about what it might be like to look down into this watering can, down into the bottom of it and plunge into there and see where I might go. And I liked that idea because I was thinking about magical gardens and where that might lead me. So as I was thinking about my three possibilities, I have the knothole idea where we could go to an underground world. We have the moving van idea where we could tell a story of a character moving from one location to another and their world turning upside down. And then I have this idea of the watering can. I think that I'm going to go with the one for the watering can because as I think about the knothole and that underground world and moving, I feel like both of those stories are potentially big stories. And right now we are going to focus on trying to write a short story that we can finish in a relatively short amount of time. And so I want to choose something that is the right size to make that possible. So as you're thinking about what idea you want to choose, I want you to choose something that you feel will be short enough that it can be told in maybe 10 pages or less. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you have everything we need for our activities. So for today, all you need is a pen and your printout of the sheets that we've prepared for you for your planning. This first page is Map of My World, which is the one you'll need for today's activity. And you'll also want to have index cards that we can use for future activities. But if you don't have official index cards, don't worry, you can just take a piece of paper or two and cut them into smaller pieces so that you have some papers that you can move around your desk that are a little smaller than a regular sheet of paper. And finally, you will need some paper that you can write on, so grab a journal, or if you want to type on your computer, that will be just fine as well. Why don't you collect your materials and then come on back and we'll get started. One way that I like to start a story is to draw a map. So what I do is I just want to see what the world is like and what the possibilities are. As we're drawing together, you're going to use the page that says Map of My World, and you don't need to draw anything elaborate. You just want to use boxes and circles, anything that will help you to remember your ideas, and you can label them also if that helps you to keep moving along quickly. So keep in mind that as you're drawing, you want to capture your ideas in a quick way. I'm going to start on my map by drawing the doorway to my magical world, which was actually the watering can, right? But I drew it as a doorway on my map just so that I would imagine my character going through a doorway into this magical world. And I'll figure out what that is like later. When they get through the doorway, I think they are going to be in a magical garden. That was sort of my original idea. So I'm gonna draw a bigger square that has some plants in it, and I'm just drawing a few little symbols to help myself remember that this is the magical garden. So on your paper, what I want you to do is think about the very beginning of the story. If you're writing a story that's magical like mine, where a character travels from one world to another, you can put the physical doorway on your map and then draw the next piece. If you're drawing or telling a story that is more about a character in real life, you can think about what space do I want to define? Maybe that new place they moved to, that Alaskan village, or the neighborhood in Washington, D.C., or wherever it is that you're imagining. So just start with a few possibilities so that you have a beginning to your map, and then we'll take the next step. Are you ready? We're going to challenge ourselves to think creatively. I'm going to use this stack of prompts to come up with some possibilities that will stretch me a little bit beyond what I had already thought of in my imagination. So the first prompt is bigger than a refrigerator, landmarks. So what landmarks might be in the world of my story that are bigger than a refrigerator? Well, I'm thinking, I have a little village, so I think maybe I'll have a village square. And in the village square, I think it would be fun if there was a well where people could go and get water, because that would be a reason to come together. And I do want something bigger that's natural. So I think I'm going to also draw in kind of a distant mountain range that I have in my world. And maybe there will also be a forest near that mountain range. So I have my mountains, I have my forest. Those are all big landmarks that are important. Think about your story and think about what landmarks you might want to include on your map. They might be buildings, they might be important landmarks that are more part of a city, or it could be something more natural like my mountains and forest. Go ahead and draw for a moment and we'll move on to the next step. The next prompt is sweet and savory, where to eat. I think this is a good one because often, especially in a fantasy story, I forget to let my characters do the things that they need to do as human beings. So I forget to have them eat or sleep because they're so excited about the adventure. So I think it's important for us to make sure we know where our characters could get some food or water. I think I already have a well in mind, so if you need to add a water source like a pond or even a drinking fountain, or you could have a general store, you could do that. I think I do want to put a little store in my village. I'm gonna make a main street over here next to the garden, and I'm gonna have a few little shops, and one will be a general store. Also in the magical garden, I know that there will be some food, some berries especially, so I'm gonna put those in there. Okay. You can go ahead and add to your map and think about where somebody might eat and add that location to your map. The next prompt is knowledge is power, places to learn. I think this is an interesting one to consider because often when our characters move to a new place, whether it's a fantasy world or a real location, they need to learn some skills that they didn't have before. So it could be that your character has a school that they get to go to, or there might be a training field somewhere in the world of your story. Where might your character be able to learn important information? In my story, I don't think that my character is actually going to go to school because she's going to just be there for a little while. I am going to put a school though, so that maybe that would be a place where she could see kids going in and out. That would be a good location. And then I also think that my character is going to learn some things about the community by going to that town square. So I'm gonna define that a little bit more as a place where she might go and learn some details about how these people live. So go ahead and add to your map any places where your character might learn or other characters in the story could learn. All right, we have a few more prompts. The next one is just for fun, places to play. I like this prompt because I think it's helpful to give our characters a chance to not only be part of an adventure that's dangerous and full of conflict, but that there's also times in our story where they can kick back and have a little bit of fun. Also, it can be interesting to think about, say, an amusement park or a roller skating rink or other kinds of locations that are typically fun, because that could make a really fun setting for a scene, even if it is one that's full of conflict. For my story, I think I'll add a village green right next to the town square where people would go out onto the lawn. They might have picnics, they could play croquet or other games that you can play on a big wide open space. Where in your story could your character go to have fun and just kick back and relax? The next prompt is don't forget important places for my story. So I've been giving you some prompts that are stretching you to think in creative ways that might be outside of what you had already thought you want in your story. And now I want you to think about any places that you know you need so that the plot of your story will work. And one of the places in my story that I know I want is a hot air balloon depot. So I'm gonna draw that in over here, kind of near the mountains. Oh, I know that there are some houses in a neighborhood, so I'm gonna draw in the neighborhood a little bit more so that I have those around the village square and near the school. So for your map, go ahead and draw in whatever you think would be an important element for your plot. And keep in mind that later you can always come back and add to your map, so you don't have to know everything right now. We have 2 more prompts for you for your map. The first one is safest spot. And this is important to think about on your map. If your character has one safe place that they could go to, what would it be? I think in my map, I'm going to put a star by my balloon depot because I think that that would be a place my character would feel very safe. And I have started to think about the character who might be there. And so I think that person would be someone my character would feel safe around. Go ahead and mark on your map where you think the safest spot is. And then when you're done, the last thing I want you to mark on your map is the most dangerous spot. What do you think is the place where your character would feel the most uncomfortable? I know that my character's landing in this magical garden, but I also know this magical garden is a dangerous spot for my character. So I'm gonna actually do a triangle with an exclamation point in it that will help me to know that that's the dangerous spot. So you can go ahead and add something like that to your map too. In our next video, we are going to work on creating a main character, someone who can lead us through this story and have this adventure happen to them. So go ahead and finish any last details you want to on your map, and when you're ready to create a main character, come on back and join me for the next video.